Welcome everyone to the second Gurukula webinar series. In this session, Didi and Ananda Devapriya will be talking to us about educating for balance in an accelerating world. I'm really happy to have Didi here. She's currently in the US, but she works in Romania, where she runs a wonderful children's school, preschool, and an ecological farm, and yeah, quite inspiring work. Anyway, welcome all. I'm handing straight over to Didi, and it's over to you, Didi. Thank you.
Welcome. So we are going to talk about educating balance in an accelerating world. The very landscape of childhood is radically different than it was when we ourselves were growing up. I love this picture that I put on the title page of the presentation with the turtle and the rocket, which is a visual metaphor for our situation in the world today. The pace of technological change has just been accelerating at exponential rates, and at the same time, it's been difficult for us to keep up with it. Let's take a look. Let's start out by testing this interactivity of the webinar technology. So this is going to be exciting, as it's my first time too. Let's look at what are your memories of your favorite toys when you were growing up as a child? Let's just hear a few of the thoughts that you have on that. Mano, can you help me out?
Yes, please raise your hand if you want me to give you voice, unmute you, in other words.
Anybody?
No one has raised their hands yet. I can offer something. I had a fantastic teddy bear that had a string in the back of it, and we used to be able to pull it, and it would sing, "You better not go down into the woods today, because if you go, there's a teddy bear's picnic down there." So it used to sing me that. So Henk has something to offer.
Okay.
Yeah, so what I like were brushes to draw and books to read.
Brushes to draw and books to read. Nice. Anybody else out there? I remember bright finger paints and playing with Play-Doh snakes. I particularly loved the way Play-Doh smelled. And baby dolls, balls, board games, you know, jumping around outside in the grass, picking juicy strawberries to eat from the garden.
You've just reminded me, Didi. My sister and I used to play in the lupin field over the road from our home, which was nearly an acre. And the lupins were taller than we were when we stood as little children, and we made these tunnels. We would be lost in there for hours.
Yeah. So a lot of your memories sound like they're from interactive experiences with the natural world or with your imagination, like when you're reading books and you're using your imagination to imagine the world. I also remember spending a lot of time role-playing, going into my mother's closet and, you know, playing with her high-heeled shoes or her purse or dressing up. And, you know, most children have a natural attraction to want to pretend to be adults and imitate. So what's happening nowadays? Here is a modern toy of preference. A lot of children from a very young age are already quite proficient at using different types of electronic devices. Many modern first world toddlers might already have an MP3 player or know how to use their parents' iPhone to play games or watch movies. So as a result, a lot of these children are spending hours in front of screens. And it's a very different experience of childhood than what we have and what we remembered. A lot of us who are working as teachers might not even have had access. Some of these devices didn't even exist yet. We're going to have a look now at a video that describes this phenomenon of accelerating change that's happening in the world around us. easy before Google.
That's right.
So what does it all mean?
Exactly.
Yeah, so I think that that video shows quite eloquently that we really are living in exponential times in which the rate of change is growing at levels that have never been seen thus far on this planet. So here's a quote from a researcher, Lars Denchik of Roskilde University states that changes in the life conditions of children growing up today can be expected to take place continuously in almost all spheres of life and at an accelerating pace. Education should serve the interests of the child by rendering the child competent to master the life challenges that not yesterday's nor even today's, but future life conditions may pose. So this is the reason that I showed that video, to underline how different the world is now and how relevant that is for educational practice, because we really need to be preparing children to be able to cope successfully with this accelerating pace of change. We are not going to be able to stop it, nor should we try. It is part of the nature of the universe and the nature of human beings to continue to expand, to continue to grow and change. And so this is something that we need to develop life skills. And I believe that Neohumanist education has something very relevant to offer in this, because I believe that skills in self-regulating, skills in stress management are going to be the new set of life skills necessary to master successfully, to successfully navigate this changing world. And we're already seeing the effects of the fact that educational systems have not been able to adapt and cope as rapidly as the amount of information bombarding today's one alarming statistic is that just in the study that was done in 1999, actually quite some time ago, between 1991 and 1999, the statistic of prescriptions for Ritalin for ADHD in the U.S. rose by 500%, according to the U.S. Drug Enforcement Administration. Now, there's many ways to interpret such types of data. Could be that many things were not diagnosed before, but it would seem, when you consider the video that we just watched and the realities that of the amounts of stimulation, screen time, different types of stimulation that children are bombarded with from an early age, they're really coping with a lot more information overload that small children had to face in past decades, past centuries. And so we are seeing these rises, which many teachers will tell you, many teachers will tell you, just if you talk to teachers in the classrooms, teachers that have been working for years, they anecdotally tell that they feel that there has been a change in the behavior of children, in the ability of children to concentrate, in the ability of children to remain focused. And many of them talk about how children, their play reflects the things that they're seeing on TV, the things that the computer games that they're playing. And many of them are not having as many rich experiences with other children, playing outside, learning social relationships. The landscape of childhood, again, as I said earlier, it's just different. It has really changed. This doctor states that many schools and teachers are not able to keep up with the different learning styles of students. Learning through imagination and creative curiosity, which this doctor found inherent in kids with ADHD, is disappearing in many schools. The current fast-paced culture seems to propagate the ADHD phenomenon. So at the same time that there's this increase in information, there's been a decrease in creative and interesting ways to learn. In many countries, there's been a focus more on testing. I think here in the U.S. that's the case. Result-based learning, looking only at, teaching to test and things like this, which doesn't help children to learn these meta skills of self-regulation, meta skills of learning how to learn. And the educational system is not able to keep up in being relevant and useful for such children, in truly being able to integrate in healthy and successful ways into this environment. However, I'd like to introduce a different perspective on looking at those phenomenon. Brain researchers have been talking more about the ability of the brain and the body to regulate stress. Regulation meaning the ability to experience and maintain stress within one's window of tolerance, generally referred to as being calm, focused, or relaxed. And dysregulation, on the other hand, is being an experience of stress that is outside of one's window of tolerance. This is generally referred to as being stressed out. And it's believed that emotional dysregulation is a fundamental mechanism in all psychiatric disorders. But not only, also just in, many times, let's go to the next slide. Each of us actually, all of us have a window of stress tolerance. Within this window, we're able to operate flexibly, we're able to manage things coming at us. Some children will have naturally just a greater amount of stress tolerance, like the first child, Andy. The other children, for other different types of nervous system sensitivities, neurological issues, or traumatic experiences in early childhood or in birth, those types of experiences can really decrease that window of stress tolerance. And you see here on the other side, Billy, he has a much tinier, a much shorter window of tolerance. And so he's already living with a greater degree of inherent stress all the time. And each of these children has a, we all have a breaking point. And if our if our stress level goes over this breaking point level, that's where you start to see all types of maladaptive behaviors. Dysregulation can come out as temperate inability to focus, inability to concentrate. It can come out as all types of defiance, opposition, and a lot of children might end up with all types of labels as having different types of disorders. And sometimes this might be useful, but I think that it is more useful to look at this as dysregulation and as the child having gone over their ability to regulate that amount of stress. And because that gives us a lot more scope as educators to approach the situation in a constructive way, not just looking for medicine or external approaches to help the child regulate. Those may be useful. It depends on the situation and on expert opinions, but I do think that understanding this model of dealing with stress tolerance can be useful for educators, because there is a way to expand the stress tolerance, and that's through relationships. When an adult who is dysregulated, that regulated adult can bring the dysregulated child back into a situation of regulation, back into a situation of being able to integrate the experience happening with them. And this, this has a lot to do with how we approach things in Neohumanist education, because here we talk about the fundamental importance of the role of the teacher, the example of the teacher, and that loving relationship. So that loving relationship actually helps to soothe children that are going outside of their window of tolerance. And it also helps you to understand, like, if you see those types of behaviors in the classroom, then you can start to think, okay, what's happening? Is it too stimulating? Are there too many children around? Does the child need to be sitting close to me? Does he need more contact? What can I do? Instead of just thinking of the child as having, putting a label on it and dismissing it as just a problem that you can't deal with, or maybe you need a specialist. Sometimes they do, but helping to think about how to rearrange the classroom environment, how to rearrange the learning experiences, how to create learning experiences that can engage the attention more, because it can be a question also of learning styles, and how to also help parents to create more ability to, less stress in their environment and more ability to tolerate it through having these close relationships, because some of these children have difficulty to actually establish relationships with the adults. They might be used to just, again, being in front of a screen, being in front of something passive. It doesn't have that ability to help the child to learn to settle themselves down through a relationship. So traditional education, looks at how to help the child, support the child in learning about the external world, and particularly looks at how to create, sensorially rich learning environments, how to stimulate the child properly, and in a way that is developmentally appropriate. But a lot of the focus is on helping the child to learn what is in the outer world. Neohumanist education of that, but at the same time, Neohumanist education also puts an emphasis on the training of self-regulation skills and helping the mind not only to move outward or extroversionally, but also it trains an introversional movement of the mind. I want to find a quote here. Yeah, so, unlike other Eastern philosophies that exclusively give importance to the cultivation of the subjective introversional powers of the mind and deny the material world as an illusion, Sarkar, who was the founder of Neohumanist education and who came from an Eastern tradition, he was an Indian philosopher and educator and creative genius. Sarkar's spiritual philosophy, he encouraged embracing both of those in a practical and balanced way, nurturing awareness of one's inner experience, but also developing an engaged attitude of service towards the relative world. Really important. And you know, from an early age, children can already learn basic skills in stress management and self-regulation, as well as simply connecting to something deeper, something that will give them a deeper sense of peacefulness, a deeper sense of connection and of belonging in this universe. And that brings us to, you know, what is actually the goal of education? Here again, I invite you to try and give me a few thoughts. I mean, why do we educate children? What is the purpose?
People put up their hands. I will. Yes, they're all out there. I'm just waiting for a hand to shoot up.
So whenever you're doing something, it's important to have a clear idea about why you're doing it. What is the goal of education? Why do we need to educate children?
Okay, Hank. No.
We are indeed preparing them.
So Hank.
Okay. So, so one thing is, one important item is to learn a skill that is useful for the future for society. But at the same time, a child also, in my opinion, needs to learn what is its own interest, what is its own way of feeling, thinking, doing, to develop that. So there should be, I think, these two items, inner capacity and outer skill.
Yeah, very good. And basically what all of that's pointing towards is helping to prepare children for life, you know, preparing them to, like you said, be skilled and have skills that are useful for their future, and also being prepared by knowing who I am, how I can contribute, what are my strengths, what are my weaknesses, things like this. So preparing children for life, preparing them to integrate successfully.
Okay.
That this leads us to, you know, what is the goal of life?
Yeah. Another another question for you, another response, should I say, Chris, is from Chris Didi. Chris, you there?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yes, I'm here. Yes, I was just going to say that basically it's to learn basic skills to be able to function in life is the first goal of education. But the second one, which has been put into schools, is for kids or children or anyone to learn how to get along with other individuals.
You know, it's really interesting you should say that, because that makes a lot of sense, learning how to get along in a social environment. But how much does traditional education actually emphasize consciously learning those skills? Probably not enough. You know, I mean, I totally agree, and that being prepared for life is a lot more than just information and skills. It's also fundamental that there are, you know, that we have social emotional skills, how to deal with ourselves and how to navigate a social environment. So I want to come back to this line of thinking. So in being prepared for life, it's also helpful to know what is the goal of life, actually. And the Neohumanist tradition has a simple answer to this, which actually can be expanded in a very rich way. But simply that, you know, the real goal of life, that all beings, actually, not just human beings, just we want to be happy. And so if we want to be happy, then education should also, you know, be an education that leads towards happiness. Because cognitive information alone is not necessarily going to lead to happiness. What some of you brought up are much more essential for happiness. Learning about who I am, learning what my skills are, learning about, what was it that he also said, you know, learning how to contribute, learning how to deal with other people, learning social skills. All of these things are really important. Neohumanist education has also given us some really clear structures to think about human potential and how to, what real lasting happiness really comes from. In the last couple years, we've been developing a curriculum which we've also submitted to the Romanian Ministry of Education, and we structured the actual content of the curriculum around 3 aspects which are related to a part of Neohumanist philosophy around the human potential. Some of you are aware of Sanskrit terms as well. Vistara, this idea of discovery of the world, that children have this innate curiosity, this hunger, this desire to discover the entire world, and that this is really important to encourage. That spirit of discovery, that spirit of curiosity, and the spirit of expansion, the spirit of, going beyond all limits. And another really important aspect for satisfaction in life is that humans have a need actually to feel that we contribute, that we make a difference, that we're not just doing things for ourselves. This sense of service-mindedness, for little children, we expressed it very simply as, I love to help. And this is another aspect that's important for happiness and satisfaction in life, and that can be taught from an early age. A service aspect can be brought into many, many aspects of a Neohumanist curriculum. Another aspect is a feeling of connection, a feeling of deep sense of belonging that comes from being in harmony with our inner self. And here we've expressed it as, I listen to my heart and I connect to the bigger magic in all. Children love the idea of magic. It's a very natural feeling for them. As we get older, sometimes we lose that. But when we are open to the bigger intelligence, the bigger I that exists in the universe and that guides things, then we never feel alone or helpless. It gives a great sense of confidence, positivity, optimism, and self-assurance that can only come from within. This is also the source of a deep sense of empathy and connectedness with nature, with other people. And so in this part of the curriculum is where we also address helping children from an early age to develop empathy and to really listen, not only to, children have a tendency to accept what adults think and say, to accept authority above what they actually feel or think themselves. We try to encourage children to think things through and to listen also to what their heart really says. So when we might use, I don't know, a persona doll, for example, one technique for children to discuss common situations that happen among children where they might tease each other or hurt each other's feelings. And when we ask them to think about that and to think about, well, what do you think they felt and what does your heart really say? What would you do? How could you connect to them? How can you use the magic in your heart to help? So all of these aspects help to create the foundation for a child to truly meet their full human potential and to be able to experience a lasting sense of happiness and peace in their life if these foundations are solidified when they are young. P.R. Sarkar, the founder of Neohumanist education, said that real education leads to a pervasive sense of love and compassion for all of creation. So then our task as educators is to think, how can we facilitate the development of an internal compass to prepare children to navigate the challenges of a technological, commercialized culture for the realities that we face today? Our approach is not to try and put children into a bubble and hide them or protect them from the modern world. The founder of Neohumanist education had a fundamentally positive approach towards science and technology. He did feel that it should be in the hands of people who are benevolent and not just trying to capitalize on it to make a lot of money. So that isn't the reality yet, and to some extent we do have to, well, to a great extent, I think we do have to, as adults, we have a great responsibility to filter the pseudo-culture and the negative expressions of a technological and commercialized culture to help protect the experience of childhood for children. But there's some very specific things that we can do to help to educate balance from an early age, to create a harmonious atmosphere, to transmit values through music, songs, and stories, and to utilize a special moment that we call quiet time. And as I go through this, the next slide will show you an example from a Romanian kindergarten, a small video clip of this moment that we integrate daily into our daily routine. Every morning when we do morning circle, there's a moment called quiet time where children have a positive experience of silence. Not just as an adult telling them to shh, be quiet, don't talk, but to experience silence as a magical moment in which you can center and connect to something beautiful inside of yourself. Alternating stimulation with relaxing, centering moments, being conscious of how we structure curriculum, giving time not only for exciting, stimulating moments, but also being aware that children have a need to integrate, they have a need to relax, they have a need for centering moments. And this will help to train them in recognizing the need for the centering moment and knowing how to do it. Breathing, because breath awareness is one of the fundamental and most effective ways to regulate stress. And when a child is dysregulated, when an adult is dysregulated, it's going to affect your breathing rhythms. And so when we're able to teach children in the moment of quiet time when they are already in a relatively regulated state how to breathe more deeply, but also when we see that they're upset or dysregulated, holding a child close and breathing, letting the adult breathe calmly and deeply can already help a child also to release, to let go. We also bring simple yoga postures into the daily routine, and self-massage. The process of self-massage is one that's very soothing and helps children, especially if they're in a state of dysregulation, to come back into balance. Touch is a very reassuring, relaxing, soothing technique. And games between children that encourage them to help each other, to touch each other in positive, loving, sweet ways. And loving connection, the relationship, especially the relationship with the teacher, is fundamental. And that brings us to personal example, because as I said earlier, when talking about regulation and dysregulation, only a regulated adult can help to bring a dysregulated child back into a state of regulation. And I think that that is very important to understand, because when we truly understand that, it shows us just how vital and important it is for teachers to pay attention to their own mental states. Teachers know intuitively that when they come into the classroom and they're already in an agitated state of mind, that the children are probably going to be a bit more irritated, a bit more difficult to control in that day. But when they're in a happy, optimistic, open state of mind, that there's just another atmosphere in the classroom. Teachers know this, yet that it's not consciously talked about or developed in most teacher training programs. Neohumanist education, in contrast, tries to bring that into conscious awareness and to give teachers the skills for self-regulation so that they will be able to transmit those to children, not by talking about it, but by their personal example, by being centered, relaxed, balanced people. Oh, this is a story. I don't know if I have time to tell the whole story, but stories are a wonderful medicine. And one of my favorite storytellers is Susan Perrow, who has written the book Therapeutic Storytelling. And one of her stories is a nice story for helping dysregulated children called The Red Pony. And it's about a wild red pony who just loved to gallop and kick and play all day. Galloping, galloping, hey, galloping, galloping, ho, the little red pony loved to run wildly in the fields all the day. Galloping, galloping, ho, galloping, galloping, hey. However, he got all dusty and because he never wanted to get brushed, because to get brushed it meant to stand still. So one day he was feeling all itchy and scratchy because he was so full of dust and mud, and the brush on the wall gave him a secret. Listen, listen well, Pony. I have a special secret to tell. If you can stand still at the end of the day, the farmer will brush your cares away. And then finally, the pony accepts to be brushed by the farmer. And as he gets brushed and brushed, all his arms and his legs, and he controls himself to stay still, he feels so much better. So it's a story which then can be enacted where a child who's feeling particularly restless can have all of the children come and brush him. And it's a technique to help the children also to get their wiggles out and to feel, to be able to release that tension. So it's a nice story for self-regulation. And the choice of stories, again, is so important. Just because a story has been written for children doesn't always mean that it's giving values that really help children. Some stories, unfortunately, use fear as a way to teach morals, for example. We try to avoid that. We really feel that children have an inherent desire to be good, and try to support them with stories that support them. That was a small, brief glimpse into our Romanian kindergarten where you could see some of these ideas put into action. I've gone a bit over time, so I'd like to leave time also for questions and comments. To wrap up, again, I'd like to just emphasize that these skills of learning how to center, learning how to connect, they are actually life skills. They're something that are necessary for small children to learn as early as possible so that they have the skills that they need to successfully navigate this very challenging, very speedy, very high-paced technological world that we live in.
Mm. Thank you very much, Didi. That was great. Really went to the heart, I think, of establishing a learning culture, a culture for becoming integrated and clear human beings in such a, as you say, such a chaotic and complex time. Now it's open for people to ask questions and basically engage with Didi. I see that Dada Shambhashivananda has raised his hand, so we might actually open it up for him to make a few observations to Didi first. Dada, it's over to you.
Yeah. Yes. Thank you, Didi, for bringing focus to this very fundamental aspect of education, which is very relevant today, is how to educate or how to bring about this inner balance which will allow us to deal with these changes which are taking place in the world. So a few things come to my mind. One is that, you know, when the children grow up, they are going to be faced with a lot of conflicts and ideological conflicts, and, you know, something, you know, they will be faced with a world in which there are many inequalities, there are many, you know, there are wars, there is suffering, and so they are constantly going to be bombarded with things. Maybe they, you know, they in a school, you know, we give them all the positive things, but when they come into the world, they see that the world is a different place. So they forget everything, because then they, you know, are we preparing them to deal with these, you know, harsh realities which are present in the world? So, and how to equip them, how to enable them so that they'll be able to deal with these, you know, these conflicts, you know, which they will face. That's one aspect. And on the other hand, I think that there are things which need to be, some preparation which needs to be done on the physical level. You know, we have to, for example, I've seen in many of the schools they use sentient diet as a way to, you know, prepare their bodies so that they feel calm in their body. Because if they are eating not sentient diet, then you know, there is kind of you know, a lot of tension in the body itself. So I think diet plays a role in bringing balance in the body. And then yoga exercises, you know, you mentioned a little bit of it, but I think as a culture, there may be certain martial arts or sports, you know, which also bring balance, you know, or help them to discover the balance in themselves.
Thanks, Dada. We'll better hand it over to Didi because I'm aware of time.
Need to be practiced.
Yep, Didi?
Okay. Yeah, you brought up several very important and very interesting points. The first one was related to, you know, conflicts in the world and the harsh realities of this world. I just want to bring up, let's see if it's showing my screen.
Your screen has disappeared at the moment, Didi. I'm not sure if that's for everybody, but certainly for me.
Yeah, did it come back on?
No.
Did it come back on?
Yes, San Francisco School Superintendent.
Here we are.
You have that.
Yeah, okay, they can see it. Okay, so there was just an article actually today in the paper from the San Francisco Chronicle, and it was about the school superintendent in San Francisco called Richard Carranza. He's been introducing quiet time to this Visitacion Valley Middle School, and they've had, this is an area, it's a particularly troubled area where there's just an extremely high rate of crime, of murders. They have a grief counselor on staff in the school because it's such a regular problem that children die because of the violence. But since 2007, they've been experimenting with integrating quiet time into the curriculum, and they found that suspensions fell by 45%, daily attendance increased to 98%, and the GPA went up. They even had about 20% of their kids, when they graduated, were accepted into one of the elite high schools, which before 2007, this was really a rarity. And they also did, on the California Healthy Kids Survey, they had the highest happiness levels of kids in San Francisco. So just now, I mean, I don't know if the only thing that they changed was the quiet time, but in the article, it's highlighting the key role of quiet time, and he has been actively working to introduce this not only in this particular middle school, but in schools around the San Francisco area. So I do think that, you know, even in such harsh environments, that's not a kindergarten, and that's not in a sweet and protected area, that this technique can have amazing relevance, and we shouldn't underestimate it. At the same time, I do want to say that besides helping children to have contact with a sense of, harmony or peace, I tried to mention it earlier, but I'll underline it again. I think it's really important to help children to develop their critical thinking skills and to learn to listen to their heart and to learn to listen, to develop their voice of their conscience and to learn to listen to that as a guide. Because, yeah, they're not going, you're not able to just through imposing messages from the outside for that to really create that sort of firm sense of values to guide the child throughout their whole life. We have to trust in their internal compass and help them to develop that. Those critical thinking skills can be developed through simple techniques like I was talking about, persona dolls. I don't have time to go into that into detail in this particular presentation. But there's many ways of doing interactive storytelling in which you put situations in front of a child of injustice, things where children are being teased, discriminated, their feelings are being hurt, and ask children what they would do. You can also bring into the classroom situations that are happening in the real world and have children think about it and share your own opinions. When you see, I don't know, when I tell my teachers, for example, if we're using a material in which there's stereotypes, to actually talk about that and to say, I don't think it's fair the way that the women in this, the girls in this story aren't doing anything active, only the boys are. I don't think that's true, and I don't think that's fair, and it makes me upset. So by modeling also critical thinking skills and just, we have to teach children not just to accept everything in the media as real and as true.
That's very true, Didi. Thank you. I'm being the MC, very aware of time, but I can see there's one more question which I think would be really interesting to hear from Sid Jordan. I'm just unmuting you. Looks like it doesn't want to unmute it. It should do it shortly. That question, while I'm trying to do this, the question of critical thinking, I think, is something that at every age we can address directly, but for some reason it's not working for Sid. I'm not sure why. I'm just going to try it one more time. And connection is lost. That's a problem. We may have some connection problems here. Didi, are you able to hear me? We seem to have you back again. Sorry about that, everybody. I'm just going to hand over to Sid, if possible, and see whether we can get anything more happening. If not, it may be that the fates have interceded. These webinars need to go for roughly 50 minutes. And I want to thank Didi for her presentation. And yes, it's dropped out. If you can hear me, Didi, you can hear me now? I don't know what happened then. Don't know what happened then, but I want to thank you for giving us this time, and it's very clear to me that there's at least one, if not more, webinars that we can have with you, and I know very much that you put a lot of thought into this, and there's many years of experience behind all your words and ideas. And you have already very kindly told me that you'd be happy to run more webinars, so we will definitely take you up on that. And I want to thank all attendees, and I do apologise for that last dropout. I noticed that Sid is there, and I'm going to let him just make perhaps a comment or an observation, because I know we don't have time for an ongoing discussion. Sid, It's over to you. Can you hear Didi? No?
I can't hear it.
I just heard a very thoughtful Well, I think this is an indication that we're at the end of this particular webinar. I do appreciate everybody's attendance. It's fantastic. Didi, thank you so much for the work you put into this. The webinar will be made available through the Gurukula website. And presumably it'll be there in the next 24 hours or so. The next webinar will be held with myself as the presenter on February the 22nd, and I look forward to many of you joining us then. Thank you very much, Didi, and goodbye all.